K9TL, kilowatt 9 Tango Lima.
Kilowatt 9 Tango Lima, this is KC9VKV. What's the name there?
Tango Lima, this is KC9VKV. What's the name there?
K9TL, this is KC9VKV.
K9TL, this is KC9VKV.
Hey, Jim, it's good to talk to you. K9TL here, and I am in Center Point, Indiana, and I'm just trying out an amplifier that I'm using for the very first time ever.
Roger, TL, and whereabouts, you say you're in Indiana?
Roger, TL, and whereabouts you say you're in Indiana?
That is correct, in Center Point, which is near Brazil, which is near Terre Haute.
Roger that, and what's the name there?
Roger that, and what's the name there?
The handle here is DOUG, Delta Oscar Uniform Golf. 68 years old, and I'm trying out an amplifier on my station. First time using an amplifier.
Well, congratulations and welcome to being heard. I mean, today you really need one to be heard because there's just so much noise and a lot of man-made noise, not necessarily like radio, but I mean, can openers today, generate all kinds of noise, and it's just amazing that, the band, if you were to probably listen 20 years ago, things would be just not anywhere near as crowded and convoluted as they are now. But so how much power are you running there, Doug?
So how much power are you running there, Doug?
Well, it's 600 watts if I can barefoot for just a second. So on and see what happens if I go barefoot for just a second. So on your return, I'll try that next time around.
Roger that. Well, gosh, do you have a standby on that amp?
Roger that. Well, gosh, do you have a standby on that amp?
Yes, I do. It's a solid-state amp. It's a Meritron ALS 600, and I'm going to go barefoot right now. Hang on. Okay, now this is barefoot, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, do me one more now. Come up, be no power, and then give me a little audio, and then come up on the power. And make that transition as quick as you can so I can see an A-B difference, Roger.
As quick as you can so I can see an A-B difference, Roger.
Okay, now this is with full power, and now it's on no power. This is no power. This is full power, okay?
Roger. Now I'm looking at your audio on an S meter, on a modulation meter, a VU meter coming off the audio. And the audio difference is 3 dB. You're +3, you're zero level at max power. And then when you reduce power, you're at -3 dB. From the calibrated zero level on the peaks of your voice. So there's a 3 dB difference to me, audio-wise, between those power and no power. Roger? Yeah, and Doug, I just lost my Milford PA SDR and just brought it back up, so I missed your last transmission, but I do have Milford back up, so if you would repeat, please.
Sure, that's no problem. I said I was surprised that you were able to hear me at all on just 100 watts, because I've put up with that for all the 30 years that I've been a ham.
Yes, sir. I know what you mean there. But like I say, you did drop 3 dB. Now, I would say that my noise level is probably about 5 dB, 4 dB. So you're approaching my noise level when you drop down. And again, I can show you what the difference would be. Well, I can't really because this is a KW, but this is without power. And I should probably be... well, I don't know what your output is. Let me go back to power. Back to power. And what is your output max?
And what is your output max?
My max output power is 600 watts. 600 watts.
Oh, roger that. Well, that's a nice kick. That is a good kick there. And like I say, I would run that often. It just helps, particularly when you're downriver, and 600 miles, something like that. You may have conditions that ebb and flow, and that 600 watts will help you minimize the discrepancies. Roger.
Minimize the discrepancies, Roger.
Yes, I understand completely. I'm certainly thankful that I've had the opportunity now to...
Frequency is in use. Frequency is in use.
Yes.
Frequency is in use. Frequency is in use.
Incredible blessing. One of the other challenges I face is that I'm limited to a vertical antenna due to room constraints where I live, and so that doesn't help anything either.
Roger, on the vertical. Now, just out of curiosity, do you know what your real standing wave is on that vertical? I'm not talking about after the antenna tuner, but without the antenna tuner, what would your SWR reading be?
What would your SWR reading be?
Right now, it's about 1 to 1 where I am for in this portion of the band. It's not adjusted exactly correctly. I got it used and erected it before I tested it, and so I should be about 1 to 1 right now. My bandwidth is extremely limited. I can go from 7.14 to 7.23 before I hit 2 to 1.
Roger that. But you are running through an antenna tuner even as we speak at the moment, Roger.
But you are running through an antenna tuner even as we speak at the moment, Roger.
No, I am not running through a tuner at the present time.
Roger that. Well, gosh, I'm sorry that you're restricted to a vertical antenna. It's, a number 22 gauge wire sometimes works wonders as far as being able to work and not be seen if it's an HOA consideration, Roger.
Seen if it's an HOA consideration, Roger.
Yeah, that's not really the issue. Part of the issue is that I'm a preacher, and so I have to move frequently, and so I don't get to move a tower.
Roger. Now, you don't have to necessarily have a tower, but sometimes you can come off the edge of the fascia board and move up to 2 trees, one on either side, to get a dipole in. I firmly recommend resonant dipole antennas as being tremendously efficient. And plus the fact, if you've got your vertical, then you have an AV comparison. There's nothing better than being on the right antenna at the right time. So you've got your vertical. Maybe you could fairly simplistically get a resonant dipole antenna up and be able to see the difference between the two. Roger.
And be able to see the difference between the two. Roger.
Yes, I understand completely. The vertical that I'm working off of right now is an AV680, and I'm going to switch in just a second to a dipole that I have and see if it does any good. So give me just a second. dipole, I went with a low fault, but it's not exactly matched.
Okay, you're on the second antenna now. That last transmission was on the second antenna. Is that a Roger?
Second antenna now. That last transmission was on the second antenna. Is that a Roger?
Right now, I'm on the vertical. I switched over to the dipole for a second to put the amplifier in the low fault because I have the 2-to-1 bandwidth on that particular dipole since I don't have the antenna.
Roger, you were down towards my noise level, so I didn't copy a bunch of that. But I would be interested if you have a second antenna. Gosh, if you could run, well, I don't know. Do you have a problem running your amp with the two antennas? Is there a problem there?
The two antennas. Is there a problem there?
Yes. The dipole is not cut for the same width as a band section as the vertical. It only works from 7.0 up to 7.15, and we're at 7.18. When I get above 7.15, the SWR goes above. The SWR goes above or goes above 2-to-1.
Roger there, Doug. And you're, well, I'll tell you the way I tune a dipole antenna. I make SWR adjustments on the ground side, on the ground radio of the dipole only. Only on the ground side of the dipole, on the end of the ground side of the dipole for SWR, and then I bring it back onto frequency on the high side of the dipole end. So you go back and forth, SWR on the ground side, and bring it back onto your desired frequency on the high side. You go back and forth like that until you get your SWR down to like a 0.05 or something really low where you can just barely see your meter move in reflected. Roger?
Just barely see your meter move in reflected. Roger?
Yes, I understand. This is the dipole I'm using is an MFJ off-center fed dipole, and I didn't do any adjustments on it because it's cut for 40 meters, but apparently it's just a little bit too short, I think it is. Maybe I don't remember.
Roger. Now, Doug, the element, the wire that you use for the dipole, is it insulated or just multi-core copper or something like that?
Multi-core copper or something like that.
Stranded copper.
Yes, sir. Okay, there's a thing called a split bolt. I don't know if you know what a split bolt is, but you can get one at Home Depot. Very small little jobbers if you want them, all different sizes. But what that does is you can take a piece of wire, like about 6 inches to a foot of wire, and slip it up between your element and inside that split bolt, tighten that split bolt, and you effectively have increased your loading and your length of that element. So it's you can see what you need to do there. If your SWR goes up, you can trim that. I have it hanging vertically on a lot of mine. I use it as a trick tuner, so I'm not constantly having to undo the insulator end of it and all that stuff. I just take a piece of wire and hang it off the end through a split bolt, and if that's what it takes, fine. Then if it's not, then I have to start coming up on the insulator and coming closer if we need less wire. Just depends. But split bolt operation can save a lot of work on the end there, Roger.
Split bolt operation can save a lot of work on the end there, Roger.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I hadn't thought of that, so I'll have to give that a try.
Yes, sir. It works really great. Obviously, the length depends on the frequency, and the higher the frequency, the less length that you may need. I found for 40 meters, I start with about a foot, and then I can just start clumping it, cutting it off, usually in 2-inch pieces, depending on how far it's off to begin with. The closer I get, the smaller the nibble I take. Roger.
The closer I get, the smaller the nibble I take, Roger.
Yes, I understand. Now, if it happens to be that my antenna is a little bit too long, then I can just double back part of it at the insulator and shorten it that way, right?
Yes, absolutely. Never cut anything off. Just bend it back on itself. Yeah, never cut anything off, because then you're going to, may need some later on. So it's just as effective to bend it back on itself. Matter of fact, that really helps. If you've ever seen those balls on vertical antennas, like on cars and stuff like that, those little balls act as end-of-line signals. So that signal that is coming through knows that mass right at the end is the end. That's it. And it helps to define the resonance of the item. So bending back on itself on a dipole really helps to define the end of the dipole, amongst other things.
To define the end of the dipole, amongst other things.
Okay, that sounds very good. Because of the fact that I can only reach the proper SWR at between 7 and 7.15. Does that mean it's too long or too short? I can't remember.
Roger. Well, the way you can do that, if you have an antenna tuner, you can use that, or you can go low power and use your radio and watch your SWR. You calibrate, maybe you're down at 5 watts or so. This is a way to do it. 5 watts or so, you've got your SWR bridge in there, you're in reflected, and you just use your VFO and run the VFO one way or the other, looking at your SWR for minimum, and that way you'll pinpoint where your minimum SWR is. Roger?
Yeah, you'll pinpoint where your minimum SWR is. Roger?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I can do that. Yes, that'll work. That sounds very good. Well, Jim, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated the help that you have given me. Just your little advice about that split bolt will make things incredibly easier.
Roger. Home Depot, they've got a large selection. You can get them from as big as your fist down to your little finger. And, obviously something like that would be the smaller one that's going to do the job, and they're very, very cheap. Usually the smaller ones are like 2 for $4 or some $3.98 or something like that. Now the bigger ones, you start paying a price. I use some big ones to take all my grounds. The whole thing about a ground system is that they all be grounded at a central point. So I use RG8 as my choice of ground cable, because to RF it looks like a 1-inch solid copper pipe. So I use RG8, and I come off my I have fittings that go on the end of the RG8 that have ground lugs on them, and so I can come off my equipment and come to this central point, and they all run into a very large split bolt, and they're all grounded at the same place. And I think it beats the heck out of that long copper pipe that they talk about putting on the back side of your desk or table or whatever, because if that sucker gets too long, you're going to start talking about portions of wavelengths, whereas you want your grounds to all be at a central point, and a split bolt does that. Roger?
And the split bolt does that. Roger?
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand what you're saying about that. So, well, that sounds very good. I really appreciate the chance that I've had to talk to you, and I'm going to expect that there may be 1 or 2 others that might like to have a chance to visit with you about their radios. And Jim, I hope that you have an incredible afternoon. By the way, I thought that you were near Louisville, but you're in Indiana. What town in Indiana again?
We're in New Albany, which is directly across from Louisville. We're on the Indiana side of the Ohio River, right at Louisville. Roger?
We're on the Indiana side of the Ohio River, right at Louisville. Roger?
Yes. Okay, that sounds good. I've been through New Albany a number of times. My in-laws, brother-in-law and sister-in-law, lived in Louisville, so we went through New Albany a number of times. And they lived in the south end of the county, and so we got to go through that part often.
Roger, Roger, Doug. And what radio are you running, sir?
Roger, Doug. And what radio are you running, sir?
I'm running an ICOM 7300.
Roger, 7300. We have a tune-up procedure for that. You look really close, but we start with that setup with a compressor engaged at a 3, a token amount, but it begins the process. A 3 on the compressor, and then move to our ALC with mic gain in hand, and as we speak fairly rapidly, 100, 200, 300, we adjust the mic gain until the ALC is running mid-scale to 2/3. And once you do that, you'll be running about 3 dB dynamic range.
Once you do that, you'll be running about 3 dB dynamic range.
Okay, I appreciate your kindness and all of your information. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And KC9VKV, K9TL, clear on this end.
Roger, Roger, Doug, 73, sir. You have a great afternoon, beautiful weekend. And we got about 3 minutes left, so maybe we can get... oh, and Doug, we have been recording this, so if you want to hear your radio, if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for KC9VKV along with today's date, 6/18/21, that will take you directly to this recording. And so we have about 2 minutes or 3 minutes left. If you have a radio you want to get checked out, give me a shout.